What is that goal? What is it that you want for yourself? What is it what you want for your people, your customers? Surround yourself to keep you going, that people that are going to make you better. Don't be the smartest person in the room. You might be good in one aspect, and it is very good to be good in one aspect, but bring in others to help elevate you. And that's what I try to do.
If you or someone you know owns an apartment community, listen up. Storyboard Living is actively seeking 40 to 250 unit apartment communities within a 3-hour drive of St. Louis, whether that's Carbondale, Illinois, Columbia, Missouri, or St. Louis County. We're easy to work with and competitive on pricing. You can send information to deals@storyboardliving.com. That's deals@storyboardliving.com. Rob, thank you for your time. You're the president and co-founder of Flex Payment Solutions, a payment technology company. You focus on payment processing in very niche markets, in very niche industries, something that we'll get into. You've also been on the Inc. 5000 list 3 years in a row, a trifecta. So you're a fast-growing, exciting company that's in innovative space. You're looking at again, some niche markets that we'll get into soon. Is there anything that I'm missing there when talking about Flex? And also, just for anyone listening, Flex is not your first company. You've bought and sold companies before, including one before you were 30 years old. So potentially a serial entrepreneur as well, if you like that title.
Yeah, I've never been called that, but I guess that's true, right? So
Flex, what does Flex do? How big is the company today, or what are your ambitions with the company?
appreciate bringing me on. Great questions. So Flex, family owned, first off. So we are a direct payment technology company. And when I talk to people, like, what do you do? It's like, usually it's over their head. All businesses need payment accessibility, right? Especially in the electronic space. So we have a variety of payment methods, obviously card, ACH, which is a direct debit out of your account. We do check processing. We have IVR, pay by text. We started out with check processing, and it slowly grew over time. So, but yeah, we have a variety of banking partners and got very specific with a couple specific business, industry types.
So your business is one that I think your typical person never thinks about. And I never think about either, to be honest with you. So it's very specialized, very unique. Would love to learn a little bit more about your background, maybe when you were first exposed to entrepreneurship, your education or professional experience prior to starting Flex, because I think that's very important for context. I don't know if anyone just jumps into this space, if that makes sense.
No. So I have a bachelor's degree in marketing. Met my wife in college, so I'll get a little bit of family background. And graduated, had ambitions to be, something in marketing at the time, right? I mean, you're talking like late 90s. So internet was there, but not really, giving you a whole lot of choices. So you're just opening the paper and whatever. Right after we had gotten married, within a year after graduation, I had started a business based on a thing my wife got involved with. She was involved in a bad car accident in college, and she had basically won a lawsuit waiting for the money. And she's like, I have to wait for the other parties because she was involved with several people in this car accident. And I said, so basically you have guaranteed money, but you can't get to it. And she says, yeah. And I said, man, that sounds like a tax refund you just can't get your hands on. And she's like, I guess so. So started looking into it and found a niche where law firms would settle cases. They cannot give their clients money, but they'll settle the case and they have to sometimes wait months. I've found a niche market where I stuck myself in the middle, almost like a medical lien, where I would loan them money and I got paid when the settlement came in. It was guaranteed. And I developed that from her situation. And I built that up for about 5 years and ended up selling that. And at the same time, while I started that, found out that she was pregnant, not with one, but with two. So there comes my twins, being very young, starting a new business.
So started a new business, kids on the way, and I would imagine close to no revenue coming in from the business yet.
Oh, yeah.
Difficult situation to be in, but I'm sure it kept you very motivated.
Yeah, super motivated. Yeah.
So just going back to like that model for that first business, you said the money's more or less guaranteed. So is there a chance, like if a law firm wins a lawsuit, is there a chance that the company that owes the funds goes out of business or declares bankruptcy?
Well,
before?
it's insurance.
Okay.
So that I can only basically compare it to like medical lien, right?
Okay.
You're waiting on that insurance company to pay that medical lien. We were treated the same way. So it wasn't wasn't a civil thing. It was more of a work comp or personal injury. So I had to do all with the insurance carrier.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So right off the bat, you were in a very niche type of market.
Very, very niche specific. Yeah.
Okay.
Studied the law in Missouri, found that there was no law for it, but I got licensed for it. I found something within the system. And then, but then how do I keep track of it, right? There's no software you can pull off the shelf. So then I hired a programmer and was with her for a couple of years, just developing it. And yeah, I got busy. So very busy.
So as you were growing that company, you were very young. You had a lot of other things going on in your life as well, with young kids and a family. So what were some of the challenges you had to overcome at that time? And then also when and why did you make the decision to ultimately sell?
Great questions. The business outgrew me, if I can sum it up like that. And it was, I did borrow money from family to get me going, eventually established the business, got a line of credit, nothing major, but just kept, I got busy. And I eventually hired somebody. So I was hustling, meeting people. I operated out of the basement of my house, eventually got a little office. So I was constantly grinding at it. But the business got to the point to where I had to make a decision and leave and go work with family in the other family business, or stay here. And there was more opportunity on the other side. So that's what brought me to my decision to sell, and, paid my debts and sold for profit at the end of the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you sold, you went to work in the family business. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you expand on what your role looked like at that time?
Yeah. So it was in lending. We were in a variety of states, online, storefront, consumer lending, some of it being auto, personal. I handled all of the back end licensing, setting up the treasury management accounts. Eventually, I was setting up payments for just actually check depositing. And I found a way to save costs from just check depositing. There was a law passed in 2004 that you could do it from your desk instead of getting in your car and going to the bank. And then you could route it through a clearing system that was much cheaper. So you got it back faster if it returned, and it just costs less.
A lot of what you just said would go over the head of your regular person, and I'm not going to say whether or not I'm a regular person in this context, because a lot of it might have gone over my head.
Sorry, I get really granular there.
No, it's important. It's a great trait to have, and I'm sure that's what's led to your success in this space.
Yeah.
But so I fully understand, that was the catalyst for what Flex became.
And I should have started with that. Yeah, it totally was. So setting up the treasury side, that's where I first got exposed to it, because I saw a problem. Like, we're getting these checks weeks later that were returned. It just was super inefficient. And I just, like most people, even back in 2004 or 5, whenever this was, just found a company that was doing this. And I'm like, that's super interesting. Talked to them and got it going. And yeah, that was the catalyst.
Okay.
And in fact, that company we still work with today in other means.
Okay. So a very long-term relationship.
Very long-term. Yeah.
So if we're fast forwarding a little bit, you have the idea to start Flex.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the beginning you weren't sure exactly which markets and industries you wanted to focus on. How did that come about? How did you focus on, the cannabis or cannabis in the near future and some of the other markets you're in?
A great question. So when Flex was established, we were trying to fix a problem within the lending market. I don't want to bore you with the regulations and the rules, but there's, some things that, when you debit a customer's account, the network that regulates that they don't want there to be a lot of returns. But one thing were checks, right? They don't have a regulation like component to it to where it's got to be within a certain threshold. So we've got really focused on that to help that business. And then we got just really good at it. And in 2018, because Flex was formed in late 15 and then went to market in 17, took me about a year to develop. But in 18, the 2018 Farm Bill Act passed. And that was where the whole thing for CBD hemp came out. I wasn't in it. I didn't know anything about it, but I saw a niche for it after US Bank got involved, loaded up a lot of merchants to process cards, and then pulled out within 6 or 7 months. And merchants were just scrambling. And we had just started card processing at that time with a sponsor bank. And I'm like, there's got to be something here. Why did they pull out? And that's where we got segued into that, just because of, noticing that the market trend. And then eventually we got a client from somebody I knew that was looking for it. And I called my bank up. I'm like, can we make this work? So it was kind of like I stumbled into it, but it's more like for observation, just of what was going on in the market.
That's a great story. And I do want to get into the development of Flex a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, since we're on this topic, the markets you're in, can you kind of expand on each of those, if you're able to share, and then how you got into those markets? Is it a similar story to where you might have just stumbled into a lot of them?
It actually is just totally different markets. So going back to when I first envisioned Flex, it was trying to fix a problem for that threshold mark that some of those lenders couldn't, be within, right? Because they're dealing with clients that are prime, subprime type thing, can't manage their bank account real well. So I saw that, got hyper-focused, developed a check processing system to help them, and it sold itself. And we got really hyper-focused, and just, that's all we did. We didn't trail off, do anything fancy, made sure to work real well. Competition of ours, I had heard about some things that weren't working, and we perfected ours to where we wanted to target and try to solve those issues. And we still have some original clients today since 2017. Then we started looking at other payment methods from that particular segment. Well, what else do you do? Well, when your customers say, what else do you do? And you don't adapt to that, they're going to find it elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So we started adding more payment methods on. So all of our payment methods that are surrounded from the lending industry. But, eventually over time, we got into where, against the CBD hemp side, because it was much the same way. But going into the lending, back to that, I was at a conference, we were selling, but even more specific than that, I had a group come up to me that was from a Native American tribe. And we were dealing with lending, and I was used to state lending, and they started describing their problems, no different. And I found it very unique on what the Native American tribe was trying to do. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a federally recognized tribe it's like its own state. They don't abide by state law, don't get state funding. And they're trying to find develop an economic development, right? And they have a variety of businesses that they do. But some of them have developed a division like finance, so they could do lending from online. They're isolated, they're out. Some of them are out in the middle of nowhere. And if some of them don't have much land that they can do anything with, but the e-commerce side, they can. So I found it super intriguing, still find it intriguing today. And we work with several tribes in that space.
All across the country?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would each tribe that has their own piece of land, would each of them operate like their own state?
I hate calling it a state, but it's their, yeah, they have their own government, establish, laws, rules, whatever you want to call it, and then their own economic development, whether it be, just like, anything, right? Manufacturing, drilling, or whatever, and then some of them, they found e-commerce. And in fact, that's been a really big push, especially with COVID, right? So we were all locked down. What happened there? We couldn't go anywhere. So when you think about, you know, casinos and hotels, a lot of that, tribes do. Not everything, and not all of them, but a lot of them do. That all went away. So if some of them were really, really relying on that for to bring revenue in, they panicked. Some of them were already prepared for that by having this business model already in place, and some of them gotten into it since then. If anything, it's opened the eyes of those that are kind of secluded or just trying to look for additional revenue stream in general, in case, God willing, it's never going to happen again. But you never know. So it's just not a lot of people think about that, right? And I feel like we are a very big, important piece of that economic development. So we really support that industry.
That's a great point. I actually never thought about the ramifications of COVID on Native American tribes because some of them are dependent on, the hotel, casino type of revenue streams. That's a great point, and I'm glad that you guys are in that space, helping them out, working with them, and setting up win-win solutions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you were first setting up Flex in 2015 through 2017, let's call it. So like a year and a half, I think is what you said.
Yeah, we worked on the project. Yeah.
Were you extremely technical I know you are with the knowledge, but are you also extremely technical with the development, or do you have and work with a team of folks that maybe have skills that you don't have?
Oh, absolutely. I have trouble sometimes with just my cell phone today. So yeah, I'm embarrassed to say that, but yeah, it's you hire people that are smarter than you. You have to. I mean, I'm a big visionary, looking for the future, just trying to, really, man, I think we can figure this out. And that's what I did with my previous business. When I got out of school, I had this vision, but I didn't know how to program the system to keep track of it. So yeah, you have to put people around you that are smarter than you, that, everyone's got their skill sets, but you also have your, that you're not so good at. And you have to realize that. So, and you hire those people to bring you up.
How many years in were you into your entrepreneurial journey when you learned that lesson?
Oh, I learned it my first go around because I knew what I needed to get done, and I knew I couldn't do it without somebody's help. But that light bulb didn't go off until I think we had a little minor crash in the system, and I freaked out, and it was recoverable, but I was like, I can't exist without this person. I can't do it, and you shouldn't be doing it all. You can't do it all. If you're doing it all, you're not being utilized right. And that's important for any business owner, entrepreneur to know that.
You mentioned the visionary role, which is, of course, extremely important in your organization. Your company runs on EOS, correct?
Yeah, we developed EOS probably about two and a half years ago.
Okay. Yeah, what I was going to ask you was if you were running EOS day one, which I haven't heard of a lot of people doing, but I think it could be a good move. I feel like most of us figure it out later on that, maybe we need a system.
I did not have it day one, didn't know what EOS was day one. So no, it's the adaptation was a little interesting in the beginning, but it grew, as long as you stick with the process, it does develop and become part of the organization and culture over time. And it does help a lot.
There are some things that, maybe you learned from experience, like, for example, hiring people that are smarter than you, but something like an EOS, I don't think you can just pick up from experience. So where do you typically go for your self-education, your knowledge, and picking up these tips or tricks that can help your company?
being in the space that I'm in for payments, looking at organizations across the country, there's various ones. You looking for trade associations that might have a subset group for it, right? So we're in the lending piece, and there's a subset of that for payments. So we're part of that. But there are certifications and things you can get done, but having that knowledge base and networking, most important, inside those associations is huge. They'll have seminars, they'll have updates. Yeah, we're part of several of these organizations.
Has EOS allowed you to really focus on that visionary role? I know a lot of folks, myself included, that think of themselves as visionaries oftentimes still get pulled back into, maybe things they don't prefer to do. So do you find yourself being able to sit in that seat most of the time?
I do. There is that little voice, though, and you're like, man, they're not doing this right. But just let the process handle it. You're like wanting to jump in there. Every entrepreneur, if they adopt the EOS, they're going to have a problem wanting to jump in. I catch myself sometimes and I'm like, nope. If the house isn't burning down, I'm sitting back, and my team knows that. Like, I'm not going to get involved. The house isn't burning down. I am your last resort. If there's something going on, it's not that I don't want to hear about it, but like, I'm trying to build you guys up, and I think there's a good understanding of that. But internally, as the guy who, you sit there and you're like, I need to have a minute, you walk out of the room, but it's not terrible. It is something that takes time, and it's discipline more than anything, because you do want that team to be thriving without you. The business needs to survive. We're not going to live forever. The business can. So make your mark, build your team up, give them that power. You can still watch them from but be engaging, but not doing it, if that makes sense. And that has allowed me to be that visionary, to do what I want to do.
That kind of reminds me of a friend of mine. I won't say his name in case he doesn't want me to share this, but he said he was speaking to another entrepreneur, and he's kind of in that stage where he wants more time away from the business, so that it's operating the same whether he's there or not. And he asked someone that just took like a month-long vacation. He said, what's the team do when you're not there? And he said, the same stuff that they do when I am there.
Amen. Yep.
So when you were implementing EOS, a part of it, or a big part of it, was you want to focus on your role as a visionary. You want to grow the company and think strategically long term. Yeah. Was a part of it also just having more flexibility in your life as well?
Looking back, I didn't think about it then. I thought I was more worried about things not getting done. That's just part of my nature, and maybe part of just an entrepreneur in general. But no, it has developed into that, and I can see that. But yeah, it is something that, if you allow it, will develop into that, and that's what I want. I'm still busy, even though there's others doing it, I'm more of a consultative type approach thing rather than doing, which has been a really interesting change for me from the beginning, because you wear a lot of hats. You wear a lot of hats in the beginning. Having, when you're paying several people that used to do that job, it's like, it's better now than it was then, because I know I probably made mistakes. I know I did make mistakes, but now I can do what I do best. So,
do you have any insights you can share with us, like in terms of how you think about the hiring process? Because you mentioned hiring people smarter than you, so I'm sure you have a process for that. And then also how you go about the consulting or coaching to help build them up and also empower folks on your team.
Okay, yeah. So Flex is one of 3 companies my family owns. First off, there's a holding company. So when we started, thank God we had a base. So I was very lucky to have that in the beginning. I had people to lean on, HR, upper management. So I did the business plan, that type of thing. I had that to lean on first off, right? So, the hiring process, I followed with what we had before, but there's different roles within every company, so when I have to hire somebody, especially we're a tech, I consider us, we are a tech company. We are a tech company that moves money. That's what we do. And, hiring people for things that you don't specialize in is interesting. I had a person that I knew that I brought into it that did some side work for our other companies before. And I said, hey, here's what I want to do. Can you do this? And we had several conversations. He's like, yeah, I can do it. And we worked it out, and he's still with us today. More integral because this was a side job, and now he's come on board and he's full time. But that hiring process is looking at where you want to perfect, and you need to plug in the holes, and that's anywhere from an admin person up to tech, right? Buying back your time is something that I've heard that term in several different, reading it, hearing about it. Where do you need to buy back your time? Even from having your calendar or emails monitored by an assistant, virtual assistant, which is something I can do, but I learned quickly that I spend too much time. So the hiring process, I have an HR person. We write the job description. It's your general thing. I interview if it's affecting me. If it's not affecting me, my team does it for their area. And unless it's a high level role, I'm not involved. So I've empowered them to do what they need to do. But, when it comes to something that is a very involved person that's going to affect the overall company, I get involved with that interview process because I want to be a part of here's what I expect. Here's the culture that we do. And it's making sure that they're part of that the core values that we do is in that person as well. So it's very important to have that.
That makes sense. And I love the piece on having the folks that are going to be working with that potential team member interview them and ultimately hire them. I think that's very important, especially if it doesn't work out, because then it's not your fault either.
Right. And then I want to say, so what did we learn? Yeah. And I do that to myself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Unfortunately, we all do that, right? So.
Yeah, definitely. And then just on that same piece of hiring, you mentioned something that I think is really interesting. Hiring people for roles where maybe you don't have that technical expertise, or maybe, you're not very knowledgeable in that one area. I know you said you brought someone on board that you had previous experience with, but do you have a methodology for hiring for those types of roles now, if it's one that no one in the company has expertise in, or have you had that situation come up?
So I rely on our current CTO for that. It's very easy to get projects backlogged in anything, IT especially, right? Because they're developing, but then they're fixing, or if there's a fire, something's going on, so they have to stop and go. And if that backlog continues, okay, why is the backlog happening? Well, we look at it and we're like, okay, do we need to hire a full-time? Is this a project where it just is 6 months? What do we got to look at? And we're going through that actually right now. We're trying to evaluate, is this a long-term person to hire in the IT area or not? So we're debating that. It's not that I'm afraid to hire anybody. It's just you want to make sure you make best use for that. Right now, we're project backlogged for development. But, I'm relying on him to tell me that. I'm observing it because I'm like, well, if we're starting to miss deadlines, why are we missing deadlines? Nothing major critical, because we have to make sure our systems every day are operating. That's number one. And then number two is development. But the development keeps on, well, I wish this or that, or a customer wants to do it. We got to have that dedicated team to do that. Unfortunately, it's like that in all companies. Things get backlogged. And then you got to make the determination how important it is to hire full-time, or you just get that contractor in there to get you caught up.
What's an example of some of the stuff that can go wrong? Because as someone who's not involved, on the technical side of software, for example, I don't know what really goes into developing a piece of software and what can go wrong when that software is running. What's an example of something that maybe happens regularly or just a huge issue where you need to focus on it?
Have you ever had Google go down?
Maybe like once, if
Yeah,
I can
it
remember.
doesn't happen often, right? But it happens, right? So I forget when the last time it was, but if you're, and I use that as an example, right? Because I have, a personal Gmail account. But if you operate, they went down. I forget when it was in the last. There was a hiccup or something. That's a global example, right? Nothing's 100% foolproof. First off, in our area, it could, we rely a lot on other partners to keep our systems running, right? So you could have a virtual payment card gateway where you plug in, the card number. That could go down. And very easily, their servers, something. We all, our systems operate on servers. They operate on servers. I'm sure you have it with your business. And if your customers are needing to access a database or something and that goes down, that's where the problem starts. Somebody could we receive files every day, right? We, either through an API, which is easy, or an SFTP, which means they're uploading, right? If that connection's disconnected, you can't process it. So, or somebody sends you that corrupt file, then you got to stop. Why is it corrupt? And it just goes into every day. We do have our days where nothing happens, and then we have our days where like today's the day. It's been one of those days. So it's a variety of things, but that's pretty much where it is. And I'm sure we've all experienced it at a merchant level, being a customer. I'm swiping your card. It's just not operating. Do you have cash? Well, then people panic because not many people are carrying cash, but it happens. So having like a backup is something that most businesses don't have, and they should look at it. So, yeah.
Makes sense. When it comes to Flex versus competitors, like number one, is Square, for example, a competitor of yours? And then if it is or it isn't, how does Flex differ?
So Square, they are in payment processing. I don't think of them as a competitor, like one-on-one. Now they do go into the CBD hemp market, so I guess they're kind of a competitor in that instance. But Square is more of a really, really evolving tech company that just does not. They just don't do payments. They do other things. I don't think of them as a direct competitor per se in our overall business. We do have competition. It's a little bit more segmented. Just because of the specific niche markets that we're in. You have to really have your compliance and team understanding how to service that business. So we do have it, but nothing on the level of a Square is how I don't know if I answered that or not.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. So it sounds like you have a moat, which is the compliance and the regulatory stuff that someone needs to decipher and figure out if they want to enter your space, whether it's Square or a larger company or anyone else.
Regulations are out there for everything. Some more strict than others. That is one thing we know that will not go away. So having a payment provider such as Flex, we get asked vendor due diligence questions all the time, and businesses should ask that. They should have their own standard sheet. Most don't. They don't think about it. But we do get asked from some of our clients. We'll get a sheet and they'll ask us, any data breaches? Do you have insurance? Do you have this? And I actually get excited when I get that. I don't have to fill it out first off. But I do get asked from some questions, but our compliance person does it. But I get excited because they care and they want to make sure that they're doing business with the legit group. And, a lot of businesses just don't do that. So, yeah, I'm not real sure if Square's ever gotten that. Most of their clients probably don't even think about it.
Sure. That makes sense. I appreciate you sharing. You mentioned earlier Flex being affiliated with other family businesses.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, and if you're able to, can you share kind of why you think your family was successful in being able to bring in another generation of entrepreneurs or business people. And then also, do you think you have any ambition for your children to at some point be entrepreneurial or join the family business?
Yeah. No, great question. My dad, he, started out actually in sales and went into car sales and eventually got into the lending business and didn't know what the heck he was doing. He'll tell you the story. And very entrepreneurial, built that business up, actually sold it to a bank. We're going to take it nationwide. So he was always, from the entrepreneurial side. When he sold to the bank, he realized, I don't want to be an employee anymore.
And was that the arrangement when he sold? He became an employee?
He did,
Okay.
yeah. He had his own arrangement of a comp and stock options and stuff. But he really missed that entrepreneurial side, and he stuck that out for a while and then left. And and so he's always been very encouraging to do your own business. I mean, when I told him about the going back to that lawyer, the case funding for the plaintiffs that had settled, I was 25. I have twins that are 24, and I'm like, you need to go get a freaking job, And my dad's like, yeah, that sounds like something we could do, I'm like, I look at it now and I'm like, did he see something in me or was he not paying attention? What was he doing? I believe he was paying attention, but he's just always really been encouraging. So having that support side, it's been really helpful. Now, has it been a walk in the park every day? No. I mean, you still got that family component, why aren't you doing this? And, so it's really a balancing act there, but having that support is really important. For my kids, my internal rule has always been, you need to work somewhere full-time for 2 years because I want them to develop things, habits that they can get somewhere else. And if that is good for them staying there, so be it. But if they ever wanted to get into the family business, that's my rule, is you got to be full-time 2 years somewhere else, because hopefully you can bring in something that we don't have that will help the business. So right now, my twins graduated and they got about still a year and a half to get through that. And then I have my other son who's going to be a sophomore in college. So he's got a ways.
I like the 2-year rule. I think that's really smart. Question about that though. Does it have to be 2 years in a position where you're in the office or, in the place that they're working in, or can it be a work from home position?
I want their, you know what? It's a great question. I'd rather them be out, but I didn't put the stipulation on it. I just put 2 years full time. You can't have a stint of going to, the Rocky Mountains to go, I'm going to go take a sabbatical for 6 months and then go back to my job. No, you got to be 2 years straight. So, but yeah, that's how I feel with that.
Got it. The reason why I ask is because I personally feel like for young people, it can be very beneficial to be in the work environment, picking up things that you can't necessarily pick up if you're working from home and kind of isolated. So
right.
That's why I asked the question.
Both of them are actually not working at home. They have to go to physical places. So, but yeah, it's a great point. I don't have to worry about it with them, but I do agree with you that, from the COVID side, going back to that example, being behind the screen and then being back in the office, people might say, yeah, I get more done. And some do. But having that humanistic component where you can debate or just walk next door and ask that question, that is that's interaction. And that is something that I think a lot have missed during that time. Missed as in like an opportunity missed to build yourself up, know how to do those interaction skills. That's my opinion though. But
I would agree with that. The future for Flex, we kind of touched on cannabis and stuff like that. Yeah. What does the future hold for the company? Let's say 3 to 5 years. Do you have any plans for growth that you can share? And then other markets you're looking at?
Yeah, I think I can answer that in one right now. So CBD hemp's been something we've been in, and I call it the cousin of cannabis. The cannabis market's been interesting, right? So if you've not heard of all these states that have been passing cannabis, you may be under a rock or don't have a computer or TV because that seems to be growing.
Or you don't drive on the highway.
Or you don't drive on the highway,
because the
right?
billboards
Yeah,
are popping
yeah.
up.
So the interesting thing about that is that a lot of regulation around it, a passing of the state side, but not the federal side. I think the recent administration federally is trying to bring that down to a different classification. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I'll bet you a cup of coffee that it will at some point, but I can't tell you if it will in the next 90 days, but it will. And until that happens, I don't think it's going to be fully like go, all the way to where anybody can do anything. I think there's going to be still a lot of regulation around that. And those that are up to the challenge of that will really thrive and grow. We've developed with a partner company a payment method that's fully compliant, legal, that's from your phone to pay out for the business itself. In this case, cannabis, could be any business. We plan on taking that to market actually in the next, I'd say, 60 days. It's done. We've tested it. We're just trying to get our marketing underway. We plan on building into that. My banking partners are fully involved, wanting to help grow that space, from a legal standpoint. And they're right there to be for card processing. We've really got a good method right now, and we're ready with our compliance side for when that does become legal, where you can take the card payments that are legal, not like you can't today, because you can't in today's world. There's some loopholes there, but we don't get into that. We try to run a clean ship. Our 3 to 5 year plan is to be in this, be a front runner of it, and keep developing it. Payments aren't going to go away. They're going to ever be developing. And we want to be right there with the business to help, hear their stories and what are you wanting to do? And, I always tell my team, if you listen to them, let them talk, we may not be able to help them today, but maybe down the road. But I said the money will follow. The sales will follow. Yeah, we're here to sell payment services, but we're also to hear how can we make their lives better? And that goes a long way. And I've had people with me since day one when I started down this. Yeah, I've had the one guy with me particularly. He was an intern from WashU. He was a corporate finance major, which is not easy to get into that program at Washington University here in St. Louis. He took the intern and he had a job offer. I'm going to get it wrong. It was a big firm in New York. I think he was getting into investment banking. And he says, I like what I'm doing. And I said, I can't pay you what the investment firm's doing. I just can't. And he wanted to stay because he saw something. And we worked it out. And he's been with me ever since. And so 9 years ago, I didn't know he would still be here, today. So 3 to 5 years, I want to keep growing with him and the team that I have, because we promote the culture of growth. We promote ingenuity of growing with the businesses that we service. And 3 to 5 years, I want to keep what we're doing and see what the next big thing is. And only time will tell.
That's awesome. I think you're positioned very well. You mentioned the customers and really listening to their feedback. If I was your customer or even for our current payment processor, which is just tied to our software, so we don't have any,
No. This is not a
we don't
sales
have any
ploy.
control there.
Yeah.
It's really just speed and fees. I can't really think of what other feedback I would have for them. So what do you hear from your customers in terms of improvements or things that they'd like to see?
We have two different industries that we service. And the lending side is always evolving, right? Trying to collect that payment, whether it be from a text message to making sure that's compliant from any regulatory that might be coming down the pipeline. It's understanding their business, right? If you just go in with just payments and that's it, but it's having that, you know what? I understand that this regulation's coming down. I think that we could help you with it by doing this. So it's being invested in that. And that's part of those associations and things like that that I had mentioned earlier that we're a part of. The CBD hemp side, same way, totally different business. Being a part of those associations and be like, okay, I see this coming down, or, okay, we have another client that's tried this. What are you, especially somebody's having some chargeback issues, or they might have some fraud going on. We have these things in our toolbox that can help you. It's really understanding that. And I think that's what's also helped us grow, is that we sit down and we understand what they're doing, and not many do that. We might be smaller, but that's very specific in what we do. But our growth has been great. So,
Got it. That makes sense. I appreciate you sharing. As far as the CBD cannabis is concerned, so CBD, I understand, just has the challenges any other industry has, but the cannabis, like if we're talking about an example dispensary, right?
Yeah.
If I understand correctly, they have challenges with even getting operating accounts for their businesses, like at banks. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know what kind of payments they can and can't accept. Can you kind of expand on what the challenge is today, and then what you guys are hoping to solve once the regulations allow for it?
Yeah. So there are banks that specialize in the cannabis space. You can't just walk in any bank and do it. They're all different on their requirements, fees. We have banking partners that can help in that. We don't promote it because it's something that we don't want to be involved with directly. Most of them don't ask. Some of them have, but if it's something that they ask, we can help out with. And the other question on that
just was, like what some of the challenges are that they have today, and then what you're hoping to do once those challenges no longer exist for them.
So,
which we did touch on what the plan is, but I'm just curious what exactly the situation is.
Yeah. No, most banks will have a certain criteria. We just started, actually, we're about to complete our underwriting for the cannabis. So we feel like we're ready there, right? From the licensing side to what our banking partner is wanting, requiring us to do. It's not going to go away of the regulation in this at all. And it shouldn't, right? Because that's the worst you could do, is have somebody go rogue with it. So by educating ourselves and surrounding ourselves with the associations and certifications, right? We have a couple of our people certified in certain parts of cannabis where they understand, the regulatory side of it. Because again, there is no degree for it. There might be for growing it, but not for the regulation side of it. But that's what we bring to the table, is our side from a certification to our banking partners that have certification in that as well. Not just some regular bank that's just randomly doing it, because that's the worst you can do, is being so desperate that you're wanting to open an account and try to hide it, because that you don't do any good. You could get not only yourself in trouble, but the bank as well. So being ahead of the game and understanding it and saying, hey, this is coming down. This is something that we can help you with. It's just like I said earlier. It's understanding your industry and being right there with them as things change. The challenges are definitely always going to be regulatory with that. Cash is a problem in cannabis. If nobody knows, a lot of them take cash, and that's where people try to slide in card payments. It is not legal. There's some gray areas of certain things. I won't dwell into it, something we don't get into. But our method through the ACH system, we feel like it is definitely 100% compliant. It works well. It's been approved from our banking partner. And if anything, we know we're clean on it and we know it works. So you want to try to find a payment partner that's legit and that's going to help your business survive long run.
I really admire your hyper focus in, your select markets. I think that's a great approach. And the way I like to view scale is, if you're hyper focused in one area that's very specific, that in my opinion really allows for scale versus trying to do everything and be everything for everyone. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I'm sure, if you were to tell someone about the Native American kind of submarket that you're in, most people, myself included, would probably be wondering, wow, is there really that much business out there, in that market? And then when you think about it, there's a lot out there, a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, I think I would sum it up. There's a lot of opportunity. It's just keeping your eyes open and educate yourself. Surround yourself with, depending upon what you're interested in, surround yourself by people, organizations that push you. And I know that sounds cliched, but it truly is something that everyone should do that's a business owner. If you're just there to, do a paycheck from 9 to 5 as a business owner, it's going to matter of time before you're dead in the water. What is that goal? What is it that you want for yourself? What is it what you want for your people, your customers? Surround yourself to keep you going, that people that are going to make you better. Don't be the smartest person in the room. You might be good in one aspect, and it is very good to be good in one aspect, but bring in others to help elevate you. And that's what I try to do. I'm not always successful at it, but I try to do that. It's been a journey, and it will continue to be a journey. We're not done. I feel like we're still early stages on, even though the company's going on 9 years old.
You shared some great advice there, great words of wisdom, but we do end each show with what we call a hole-in-one, which would be your greatest piece of advice that you can share with someone that's listening that they can either implement into their life or business today.
Greatest piece of advice. You could have at least told me this before we actually.
It was on the list.
I did. Now that you said that, I'll sum it up like this: don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid, and that's in anything. I think entrepreneurs, they wear a lot of their the work, the feelings. Everyone's different, right? In their personality. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. I gotta do this. Yeah. But ask for help. Use the network you have. I've been given so much advice over the years. Look at it from the standpoint, I want to help people. It's what's in it for them, right? I want to, not for me, for them. Karma will come back to, good things will come back to you if you help that person. I'm not looking to sell a payment service. I always tell people, if I can't help you, I'll see what I have in my network to see who can. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't be afraid to give that advice without expecting something in return, because it will come back to you in good ways.
I appreciate you sharing that. On that note, if someone wanted to reach out to you, where's the best place where they can either learn more about you or Flex or reach out to you for help?
Yeah, no. So website is flexpaymentsolutions.com. Very complicated email. Rob, R-O-B as in boy, Rob at flexpaymentsolutions.com. Feel free to reach out to us from that website or my email there. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody that's interested in the space or have a question about any of the things I talked about.
Thanks for your time, Rob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.